We continue with some talks on Father Jules Chevalier, who was the founder of the Missionaries of the Sacred Heart. He also founded the Daughters of Our Lady of the Sacred Heart and also the Missionary Sisters of the Sacred Heart. They were in Europe and they spread throughout the world. This is Roger from the MSC Mission Office, and you're with Mission Alive. At that time in France, there was trouble with the government and religious congregations. A lot of religious congregations had to leave France because of the laws that were introduced. Many of Father Chevalier's people did, but he remained. And the founding of the Missionary Sisters of Our Lady of the Sacred Heart was done in Germany because he couldn't do it in France. So he got one of his priests in Germany, Father Linkens, to found a congregation there, a sister congregation. One of his concerns always was to go on mission, a foreign mission. And so he requested of Rome, of the Pope, to give a mission. And he had a man in Rome, Father Chevalier, who was doing that work for him with the Pope and the Vatican. He was first offered a mission in the Pacific Ocean, to parts of the Pacific Ocean and to New Zealand. And the Pope asked him to do that. So he took it to his council. At this stage he had a council, and his council said, no, we can't do that. We haven't got enough men. And they only had a few men. And so his council ruled him down. So he sent a message to Father Chevalier to ask the Holy Father to offer another mission. Now, I mentioned last time about the importance of the date of the 8th of December, the Feast of Our Lady. And so he said to Father Chevalier, make sure the Holy Father dates the letter the 8th of December, which he did. So when the letter came offering the mission of Melanesia and Micronesia, dated the 8th of December, Father Chevalier was able to say to his council, look at the date. Our Lady wants this. We cannot refuse. And so the mission began. So you can see that he was a very holy man, but he was a very smart man, and he could maneuver things to get what he wanted and what he saw to be what God wanted. So we were offered the mission of Melanesia and Micronesia, and they were two vicariates in the Pacific. The beginnings of our missions, which of the church in what is now Papua New Guinea and Indonesia. So he selected men to go, and they set off, and of course in those days it was all sailing ships. They put out from a port in Spain, and so they went. And that's a long, complicated story. I won't try and tell you all about it at this stage. But they got to Dutch, what is now Indonesia, the Dutch East Indies, and then they couldn't get a boat to go further through. So they stayed there for a while, and then somebody said you might get a boat from Manila, so they went to Manila. So they had contact with both the church in Jakarta in Indonesia and in what is now the Philippines. In the meantime, while Chevalier was looking for a mission, a priest in what is now Brisbane Archdiocese, Father John Carney, he was way out in the bush at a place called Gympie, which is almost part of the city now. He was a bit of an explorer. He would go exploring around his parish, and he was made the Bishop of Rockhampton, and his jurisdiction took in what was known as New Guinea. So he went exploring, and he took to Rome a paper called The Possibility of Starting a Catholic Church in New Guinea, and I think it ran to about 30 pages. I've never been able to get a copy of that. I'll try again. And he recommended that we put a base on Thursday Island and we begin at Yule Island. So that was part of the story. Also at that time, and there's a long story about the Marquis de Ray, who was a bit of a con man in France, never been to the Pacific, but he was going to found an empire called New France. And he recruited people to go there, and it was all a complete disaster. But on all these ships at that time, especially from Catholic France, there was always a chaplain, and the chaplain there, when the thing failed, he began a mission in that part of the world, in what is now the Gazelle Peninsula, and he was there, and the Chevalier and his men read all the reports of that, and so they knew that was something that was there already, and they went there. Eventually the priest that was there, he said, all right, he said, you've got the mandate from Rome, I will leave and you take over. So they put some men there, and then they went to Yule Island and started over there, so on the north side and the south side. And and the story developed from there. But this was the mission to Melanesia and Micronesia, the beginning of a long mission and a long story, and many stories in that. And a book that is a very good book for that, we have it here on sale for $30, is called The Mustard Seed, written by one of our Frenchmen, and it's a very good book, and it details a lot of that story of the beginning of that mission. And that was Chevalier's vision, to have a mission out there, and he sent his men, and it was a very long struggle, a lot of stories, a lot of difficulty. Now in that was our establishment here in Sydney as a support base for the missions, and that's got a long history to it also. And here where I'm sitting on this hill, the Kensington Monastery, which is up there behind me, was built here in 1896, and there was a house for many students, many of whom became missionaries. So that was part of our mission story, and I'll tell more about this mission story as we go along. So thank you for being with us, and thank you for being on mission with us.